Our next guest is a licensed psychologist who's the author of 8 books. Dr. Bill Crawford has 2 PBS specials on stress and communications. It's been viewed by more than 15 million people. He's created over 3,500 presentations to major organizations. Dr. Crawford turns hard science into accessible ways you can train your brain to break that cycle of negativity and access creativity, confidence, and clarity. Dr. Crawford, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for the opportunity. Really looking forward to this. I'm not sure if you know, I started my career as an HCC professor.
Did you really?
I did. I was teaching psychology way back in the day, so I've got a warm place in my heart for HCC.
So we could have had easy access to you as a student back then, way back then.
Absolutely, yes.
And now you're a famous person with like almost 1 million views on your YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being with us. You have a lot of important things to share with us. You know, we're in the middle of this pandemic, and it's so easy to get negative, to get stressed, to get anxious, thinking about reading the news all the time, seeing the numbers, especially in the Houston area. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm scared to even walk outside of our house. And then we're stuck in this house with this family, right? That's getting on our nerves. So how can we just break out of that negativity cycle?
Yeah, the one I like to do is bring new information to people who are wanting to have more influence in their life and in the lives of others. There's a quote from Albert Einstein that I love that says, problems cannot be solved at the same level of awareness that created them. So I think the first thing we need to understand is exactly what stress anxiety is, because a lot of people think it's what other people or some situation does to me, like this stresses me out, or this made me angry, or this made me anxious. The problem with that is it puts all the power for change outside of our control, and we don't want that because that actually traps us in a cycle of stress.
Okay.
So what I like to help people understand is stress is basically just a series of chemical changes in our body, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol for the most part. And those chemicals wake us up in the morning. It's not that big a deal. But when they kind of get over the tipping point and start to really get in the way of our clarity, confidence, and creativity, it's this lower brain and this chemical reaction that's really keeping us from being as influential as we really want to be.
Can we control those chemical reactions, Dr. Crawford?
Yes, if we understand how the brain processes information. So I talk about 3 parts of the brain: brainstem, lower brain, middle brain's called the limbic system, top of the mind, it's what I call life from the top of the mind, that's my book and my philosophy, is the neocortex. So if we'll understand that each of them do separate things, the brainstem basically is where our fight or flight responses are located. The top of the mind, the neocortex, this is where we get our clarity, confidence, creativity, compassion, interpersonal skills, problem-solving skills. Yeah, good stuff. This is where we make our best decisions and where we influence our experience. The limbic system, this middle brain, is the interesting part of the brain. Its mission on the planet is to keep us alive as a species. So it's always scanning the environment looking for anything dangerous or negative. Unfortunately, it's not very smart, and it's working with old software. So it has a tendency to interpret almost anything negative as dangerous and throws us into the part of the brain that's designed to deal with danger, which is the brainstem. Perfect in a fight or flight situation, but what that does is triggers our anxiety, our frustration, our anger, our resentment, and it's real easy to get trapped in this lower 20% of the brain if we don't understand how the brain is operating and be able to influence the process.
So something happens, we really get upset about it. It could be something about a political statement someone makes, someone wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, a teenage kid screaming at you for something, and we're just like, that lower brain's working and we're getting all upset, and you just want to like yell back or whatever. How do we control that and get to that top of the mind?
Great question. I have a model in my book that actually spells brain, that shows people how to shift from the lower brain to the upper brain. So it starts with saying breathing deeply and saying the word relax on the exhale. You know, everybody's heard that breathing's a good idea, but what we need to understand is the reason it's a good idea is because normally the lower brain controls breathing. Now this upper 80% of the brain is controlling our breathing. So that's where we begin to shift to the top of the mind.
So wait a minute. So our top of the mind, the upper part, can control our breathing if we just tell ourselves consciously, breathe deeply and say the word relax. All of a sudden it goes from that lower instinct to the upper thing?
It does. Now, I encourage people to use what I call the 4-4-4 method, where you inhale for a count of 4, you hold it for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 4. Because there's only one part of the brain that can count. So when you're breathing deeply and slowly and counting, you are by definition engaging this upper 80% of the brain.
That's very simple. I like that.
Thank you.
4-4-4. So you inhale and count to 4 as you inhale.
hold,
1,001, 1,002, that kind of thing in your head.
right?
3, 4, and then hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale.
Exhale, and then say the word relax on the exhale, because what you want to do is have this upper 80% of the brain take over breathing and muscle tension, because those are normally two things controlled by the brainstem. So that literally has the upper 80% of the brain regaining control by taking over two functions, breathing and muscle tension, normally controlled by the brainstem.
That's
Now,
incredible. Okay, go ahead. I love
I got,
this. So just by doing that simple breathing exercise, you're getting out of that lower brain fight or flight thing to a more rational, clear, calm manner,
yes.
right? Just by doing
Yes,
that.
that's the good news, but here's the bad news. The
Okay.
anxiety starts to come back. The person is still screaming at us. Wait a minute, wait a minute. So we don't want to stop there, okay? This
Okay.
just gets us to the part of the brain where we can actually do something purposeful. So breathe and relax are the first two steps of the brain model. Then you ask what I call a top of the mind or neocortex question. My favorite one is, okay, how would I rather be feeling? Right? We don't want to be feeling stressed, anxious, frustrated. How about clear, confident, creative, happy, excited, whatever it is? So now we kind of know where we're going. Now you want to imagine, B-R-A-I, imagine a time in the past when you were really feeling confident and creative, because any image we hold in our mind creates a chemical release in our body.
Wait, say that again. Any
Yes.
image held in our mind creates a chemical in our body?
Yes. So when we're holding an image of arguing with someone, we're triggering the same kind of chemicals that were triggered when we were arguing with them. But if we'll hold an image of how we want to be, clear, confident, creative, calm, happy, whatever, then that triggers the brain to produce serotonin and endorphins.
Oh, that's the feel-good hug
That's
stuff.
right. Feel good and think clear. Serotonin is think clear. Endorphins is feel good. And so it really actually changes how you feel by the image you're holding in your mind. So you're imagining how you want to be, you're imagining being that way, and then the last step of the model is to notice the change. How do I feel differently at the end of this model that actually spells brain, that has shifted me to the top of the mind, accessed how I want to be, imagine being that way, and then notice the change?
So if we're having a hard time imagining the good stuff, can we look at old pictures on our phone, look at old albums, and start getting back into that whole
Sure,
mindset of
that
just
would be fine. Or you
old
can just ask,
vacation pictures, perhaps, or
absolutely. Or you could just do this. You could say, okay, who am I when I'm confident and happy? What's my tone of voice like? What's my body language like? So we kind of know what that feels like. I do a lot of work with performing artists. And when I'm working with them and they're anxious, I say, okay, what if you were about to step on stage and kind of embody this character? You know, what would your body language be? How would your tone of voice be? So you embody this confident, happy perspective, and that actually has the brain triggering the serotonin and endorphins, and that really changes how you feel, literally changes how you feel.
BRAIN. If we do those steps, we can go from the bottom, from the lower part to the top of the mind.
Yes.
Where we have that creativity. So B is breathe. Yep. R is
relax. Say the word relax on the exhale.
Relax. That's right. Breathe, relax at the end of that last exhale.
Yeah.
A is ask yourself the question.
Right.
What would I like to be feeling? Right. Yep. Something like that.
Or I tell you what, another question might be really helpful. What would I teach to someone I love? That can be
what would I teach to someone I love?
Yes. In other words, we would not teach or recommend someone we love be stressed, angry, frustrated, annoyed, resentful. So if we say, okay, what would I teach or recommend to someone I love? If someone I love came to me and wanted an antidote to kind of these negative feelings, what would I encourage them to feel? So it's another way of accessing these positive qualities.
And then N is?
To notice the change. You want to notice how you feel.
Oh, imagine eyes. Imagine the good, how you used to be.
That's right. Imagine how you feel, and then notice the change. So you're going to feel differently when you breathe and count to 4, and say the word relax on the exhale. Ask that question. Imagine being the way you are going to be feeling differently at the end of that.
So our body will feel different.
That's right. And your mind will be thinking differently. And you want to make sure you validate that, because that is you changing literally the chemical makeup of your body and what part of the brain you're.
So Dr. Crawford, if we're really angry at that teenage kid who's just screamed something inappropriate to me or you, whatever, if I do all these steps, by the time at the end, notice I will actually feel different and feel better, and I won't feel like screaming back at her.
That's right. You'll be able to react because you love this person more than life itself, right?
Sometimes.
And so you'll be able to you'll be able to interact with this person based on your love. And here's the problem. When someone says something to us or screams at us or whatever, and we kind of snap back, they automatically invalidate anything we say. So if we
Right.
want to be influential with people, we can't be responding from this lower brain. We've got to be coming from this clear, confident, creative part of who we are. So we frame what we say in a way that they will hear as valuable.
Okay, we need to take a little break right now, but we'll be right back with more from Dr. Bill Crawford. He's going to tell us how we can make better decisions and train our brain to make better choices. Stay with us.
Food. We think about it all the time, but for many Americans, it's a scary thought. During this crisis, 1 in 12 seniors and 1 in 7 children don't have access to nutritious food. We can all help. Get involved at feedingamerica.org.
Houston Community College is safe, clean, and open for learning. We're sanitizing our classrooms and reducing class sizes so you can feel good when you come back. Register now at hccs.edu/college your way.
Back here with Dr. Bill Crawford, author and counseling psychologist. He's the author of Life at the Top of the Mind, and he has one for college students. Dr. Crawford, what is the one for college students, the book you have?
It's called College from the Top of the Mind. You know, being in college can be one of those challenging, stressful experiences that we have. It's new, you know, you don't know what to do. It's all, you know, staying in dorms, all that kind of stuff. So
Plus, it's not normal during this pandemic, right?
Well,
Kids are
that's
starting
true now.
college for the first time and they're online. They can't go to campus.
Exactly. So there's another challenging stressor thrown in there. So I've rewritten my Life from the Top of the Mind book to specifically speak to college students. It has the same kind of philosophy and models, but I've kind of, the examples and how you apply it has to do with college students.
Can we get trapped in the part of our brain that's just a negative part, that's where all we do is think about negative things, we complain a lot, we think about the horrible news all around us? How do we break out of that trap?
First, getting recognized that we're actually trapped in a certain part of the brain is really important, because a lot of people don't know that. They think the news or some person or situation made me stressed and anxious and frustrated. And that's understandable because it seems that way, but it doesn't serve us because, again, we can't change all that. If we can say, wait a minute, the reason I'm feeling stressed, angry, or frustrated is because I'm trapped in this lower 20% of the brain. This would be great in a fight or flight situation, but it doesn't serve me now. So if we'll just begin to see that the anger, the stress, the frustration is a valuable signal. There's something in my book that says stress is a signal something needs to change. Suffering is when we don't make the change.
And we are the ones who have to make that change, right?
Not only have to, but want to. We want to be in charge of how we're thinking and feeling, so we're not at the mercy of other people, of other situations. So us being able to make that change, shift from the lower brain to the upper brain, change the chemical makeup of our bodies, so we're actually changing how we're thinking and feeling, is really what people seem to like when I'm going out and sharing my material with them.
You know, earlier, our first segment, Nithi was talking about how he's telling his students, stay calm, stay calm. But are there specific things they can do to stay calm instead of just telling themselves, or is just telling themselves a good thing and your body starts changing and different chemicals start flowing?
Sometimes when you tell someone to calm down, they go, calm down, don't tell me to. In other words, they start arguing for not calming down. So I think the reason that worked really well with his students is because they were really anxious, and then this thing came down and he said, stay calm, and they went, oh, okay, I will. That's great. So anytime you can say stay calm and people are calm, that's wonderful. But sometimes just saying stay calm doesn't really give them tools to kind of make that calm a part of their life. And this is where college students and people that I talk to and work with as a psychologist and speaker really love this idea that I can influence how I'm thinking and feeling by actually altering what part of the brain I'm in and the chemicals that I'm triggering in my body.
And we can do that by, first of all, doing the exercise we talked about in the earlier segment, breathing in 4-4-4. Tell me, how do the mind and body affect each other?
Great question. There's a concept called the vagus nerve. It's relatively new, but it's really, really important because it is the nerve that connects the mind to the body and the body back up to the brain. So
Okay.
when the brain tells the lungs to breathe deeply, the lungs send a message to the brain to calm down. So it can create a brand new mind-body connection through this vagus nerve in a way that actually has the body and the brain and the body working together to trigger the kind of chemicals and breathing and heart rate and blood pressure that we're wanting.
Does that work when you're experiencing pain? Let's say you have a backache or something's hurting, cramps or something. Can you do that same thing where you tell your mind something and pretty soon the actual physical pain dissipates?
Yeah, here's what happens. When we're in the lower brain, pain is actually experienced in a more intense way. when we're triggering endorphins, which of course is kind of nature's drug, and serotonin, the pain is diminished in some way. So a lot of people who work with people who have pain really help them kind of get into this state. Meditation is obviously really good at this. And what you're wanting to do is trigger those endorphins in order to minimize the pain. So it's certainly possible.
Dr. Crawford, how difficult is it to really live at the top of the mind?
It's not
stay
easy.
there.
It's not easy. Because we've been in this lower brain for so long, we've got a lot of old neural pathways going from the middle brain down to the lower brain. So in my book, I have this model of not only how to shift to the top of the mind, but a whole nother model about how to stay there. And that's the real important part. Otherwise, we're just going to be shifting up and shifting up and shifting up all the time. So staying in the top of the mind is going to be really important. And that's not as easy as just getting there, but it is doable. Anything we practice, we get good at. Plus, we're rewiring the brain. You've heard of neuroplasticity. We're rewiring the brain, creating these new neural pathways from the limbic system to the neocortex.
So is it sort of like training for a marathon or for anything big you're trying to achieve, where you have to go at it every day, practice every day, or practicing the piano, whatever you're trying to get good at, you have to just keep going? And the same thing with training yourself to do that with your brain, so you stay there and not cycle up and down, like you said?
Absolutely. And the good news about practicing is because we're triggering serotonin and endorphins, the practice feels good. So we don't have to wait for just a whole bunch of, positive things. We'll feel good as we're practicing. The key here is to do it every day for at least 2 to 4 months. You will have rewired your brain at the end of that.
Okay, so we can do it every day during this pandemic and we'll come out better people, right?
Yeah, right. We got plenty of time, right?
I need your book. Thank you so much, Dr. Crawford. I appreciate your being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's all for this edition of Global Outlook. You can find us on HCC TV every Friday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. and p.m., plus Saturday at 10 a.m. You can also go to our website, hccs.edu/podcast, and download us to go, or watch us, the full video version, on HCC's YouTube channel. I'm Mary Sitt. Thanks for watching us.